Good morning, everyone. Can all of you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, do we have all the four presenters for today? Misam Abbas, Tausif Raza, Shazar Alam, and Asad Bey.
Yes, sir.
Very good. So, let us start the first presentation. Uh, yes, Misam and Tausif, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Misam,
Yes.
are you there?
Please start the presentation.
Misam, are you there?
Actually, my mic was off. Just a moment. I'm sharing my screen. Yeah.
Okay.
Now I'm visible and audible.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. A very good morning to all of you. It's a very nice and a very pleasant morning. You all are doing very fine, I guess. Respected sir and my dear friends, today I, Sayyid Misam Abbas, along with my friend Mr. Tausif, will be presenting an article titled "Managing Oneself," which is being written by Peter Ferdinand Drucker, who was also known as one of the founding fathers of modern management practices. So before describing something about the author as such, I would like to have a brief overview of what we will be presenting today. We will be starting out with the introduction, then followed by what are the strengths, how do I perform, what are the values that one needs to perform as such, where do I belong, what should I be contributing in a society in general. So, and next important thing is the responsibility for relationships. That's very important. And I would also be describing the second half of your life, that how to fully you utilize the very second half of your life, then followed by the key learnings in conclusion. Now, I would like to say a few words about the author, that is Peter Ferdinand Drucker. Actually, Peter was an Australian-American management consultant, and he was also an educator, and he was also an author, actually. So besides being one of the very best leaders of management, besides being emerged as one of the very best leaders in management practices, Drucker has wrote several books on management. So some of his most popular books include The Principles of Management. It's a very must-to-read book. It's a very interesting book to read on. So this book actually states that what is the importance of management in today's organizations as such. The very next book that Peter Drucker wrote is the effective executive as such, in which Peter outlines that how effectiveness is not a subject actually that is to be taught. It is something that really comes from self-discipline. Also, Drucker has devised the very two important concepts of management, that is the management by objectives that we have already learned in the previous semester in the subjects of concepts of management. And the very second is the self-control. That's also very important. Now I'll be coming back to my article, that is managing oneself. So have you ever imagined that what exactly is managing oneself, what one needs to do in order to manage himself? Actually, in this article, the Peter outlines the importance of managing oneself effectively. It is very important for an individual to actually manage himself or manage herself. That's very important. It is all about understanding your strengths, your values, how you perform, where do you belong, and basically look for the opportunities where basically you can leverage them. That's very important. Managing oneself is not an art. Managing oneself is an art that cannot be learned. It is something that is derived from within. If you are interested, if you know from within that what sort of things you need to learn, if you ask yourself certain questions like how do I need to perform, what do I need to manage as such. So this is very, very important in today's organizations, because today's organizations are basically looking for the potential candidates who know that how they can be able to effectively manage themselves. That's very important. There is a very good statement that I have included, that success in the knowledge economy, it only comes to those who basically know that how they can be able to manage their strengths, their values, and how they can be able to best perform. Success, everybody knows. I think success is different for me. It is something. For sir, it would be something. For anyone, it could be something. There is no formal definition to what exactly is success. But I would like to just give a very good statement exactly to what we can conclude that what can be success. Success means not just possessing powers to dominate someone actually, to control someone, but actually having this spirit of service and self-sacrifice is what one can, climb on the ladder of success. But Peter describes that if one wants to climb the ladder of success, one has to learn that how he can be able to effectively manage himself. Now, coming on to the very next, now I would be inviting my friend Tausif to further explain the introduction, followed by the what are the strengths, what are the values, what sort of things a person need to, perform, and later in the later part, I will be explaining about a very, in a very brief and a very beautifully, I will be explaining in a very simple sense that what is the, how can a person be effectively utilize the second half of his career, followed by the key conclusions and the implications are. So now I would be inviting my friend Tausif to carry out the further explanation. Over to you, Tausif.
Thank you, Misam, for the wonderful initiation. Good morning, guys. I hope you all are doing well. It was a wonderful initiation taken by the Sayyid Misam, my colleague. Now, in the next 7 to 8 minutes, I will be digging more about the topic which is allotted to us, that is managing oneself. So, if we recall, if we tell what is the requirement, what is the necessity of having this topic right now. So I believe that after having the discussion after 15 or 16 minutes, you will be having the idea about the topic, why it is important to manage oneself. So I would like to tell you, I would like to compare the time of today's and previous scenario. If we recall the past time, we get an insight from the life journey of successful people like Napoleon, Da Vinci, Mozart. All they were great achievers just because they had well managed themselves. If we all know that in centuries back, there was less number of opportunities and the people prefer to do whatever they were asked to do. Like the son of the carpenter will be carpenter only. The son of the mechanic will be the mechanic only. So like they were just following the tradition, whatever their ancestors were doing. But the time has totally changed now. We all know living in the age of unprecedented opportunities, and to grab these opportunities, one always needs to have certain ambition, and he or she must be enough smart that they can rise himself to achieve the goal chosen or the chosen profession, regardless of where you started out. So in order to achieve all these goals, we need to learn how to manage ourselves. If we have already planned that we are going to do what we are going to do in future, then the next thing we will be doing that where should give our emphasis in our life journey. As we all know, during the 19th century and prior to that, the people were themselves self-pleasing. They were actually not getting any irritation with the situation and circumstances faced by them. But now the time has totally changed now. We say in ourselves, like how we get often irritated with the situations, like when we are burdened with the assignments, works, we get frustrated. What is the thing? Actually, we are not manage ourselves in a good manner. So it becomes very necessary to manage oneself to avoid any hindrances in life. Now, without making any delay, I would like to take you toward the key points which is essential to manage oneself. The next point is for our discussion, the agenda of our discussion is what are my strengths? One of the biggest misconceptions about oneself is that they think they know what they are good at, but actually they are wrong. So without knowing their strength, one cannot work on himself and couldn't figure himself that what actually where he belongs. So one of the best way to discover your strength through the feedback analysis. This is the tool provided by the Peter Drucker, the author itself, that he says, whenever you plan, whenever you do something, like if you are a project manager in any form, you have certain things like you have designing, prototyping, financing, marketing, and then leading. So after doing certain things, after doing the certain span of time, like 9 to 12 months, after doing the work, you compare your plan and your actual work, how you are lagging with your execution. So every time you will be surprised because your plant will not be meeting the executions. Why? There will be every time lagging. Now, after analyzing the result, one must concentrate on the strength and put oneself where he can produce the result. So doing the work only where you are producing the result, like you are good at marketing, you should do there. You should be doing only, you should be concentrating on that points only. The second thing is that to improve the skill. If you are lagging anywhere, if there you have the lack of skills, you should acquire the new one. Like mathematicians are born, they are graduated, but every time they learn the new things, the new tips, the new tricks in the trigonometry. So like as we are seeing that he is surrounded by a large, I think, a bunch of books. So the third thing is that discover yourself, intellectual, what are the arrogant and disable that and to overcome from this. And I want to say you that if you are good, if you are doing best at your strength, then you will be a good performer to a best performer. And if you are doing good at your weakness, if you are manage your weakness, so you will be only incompetent to mediocre. So here the rules apply 80-20 rule. You should be doing good at 80% at your strength and 20% at your weakness. The next agenda of our talk will be how do I perform? It is amazing to know that few people know how they get things done. Like everyone has their distinct strength. Similarly, everybody has different way of doing the work or task. Like somebody may be the reader, somebody may be the listener. To avoid all these things, we should understood ourselves that where do I belong. I can illustrate this by supporting an example from the history. Eisenhower, who was the supreme commander in UK, who was appreciated by the media people and the journalists as he was a good reader. But after some time, the same journalists were disappointed. What is the reason? The reason is that he was just following the traits of the predecessor president, who was the good listener. As a result, he never heard the question raised by the journalist. So Peter Drucker says it is very essential for everyone to know their way of doing. Some may perform the work under the stress. Some may like to work without any stress, and some would like to work under the stress condition, under the pressure. So somebody like to perform in the team. Some may like to perform alone. So the other thing is that the one can learn. Some may learn by reading himself, or some may learn by listening. Like I am taking my example. Suppose, like I never get an idea just by reading the books. I used to get an idea just by listening to others, like my professors, like my colleagues, teammates. So it can also be understood like Winston Churchill, one of the best, I think, writer. He was not good in his school, during his school time. What was the reason? The reason was he was not a good listener. He was a good orator or writer. So the conclusion for this, Peter Drucker provides that don't try to change yourself, rather work hard to improve the way you are performing. So the next agenda of our talk will be, what are my values? We all often confused that type of work we are doing is aligned with our values or not. Whatever the ethics we are gaining from since childhood, whatever the values, ethics we are gaining since the childhood, is that those ethics and values aligned with our work or not. So for Peter Drucker suggests that, for that thing, Peter Drucker suggests the mirror test. After performing the one-day work, go and stand before the mirror and see yourself in the mirror. If your work doesn't match with the values you keep, your performance will automatically decrease. For example, like you care much for the environment, like our friend, anyone like Boris, care for much for the environment, and he's the operation manager in the I think refinery, oil refinery. So he automatically his performance will decrease. What is the reason? Because his value is that not to deteriorate. He cares much for the environment, and the pollution and the combustion of fossil fuel will cause the pollution to the environment. So if your overall performance is going to affect if your values doesn't match. Sometimes your strength may not match your values. Then what should we focus on? Either on strength or the values. So the solution provided by the Peter Drucker, he says that one should focus on the values. Like so many people who are very rich, but later on they realize that the value is to serve the people, not only to maximize the wealth. Like Ratan Tata, Azim Premji Wipro Foundation, who uses to spend a huge amount of money to serve the people. So without making any delay, I would like to talk the next agenda of our talk, that where do I belong? Most of us are confused. Where do we belong? Peter Drucker says it is very important to know that where do we belong actually. If we are not able to figure out that where do I belong, we must know then that where I don't belong. Like it can be understood like if you are not a decision maker, you should not work at the profile where decision making is very frequent. So if we could say really find out right places, then we can easily be outstanding performer from the mediocre. Thank you. I would like to hand over the next, agenda of our talk to Misam. Thank you, Misam. You can.
Yes, a very thank you to Tosi for very well explaining what are the strengths, the values as such, where do I belong as such. He's explained it very beautifully. So now I'll be talking about what sort of contribution that does individual have to make in order to make a difference in a society. I will be talking about what sort of contribution is required in a society. Actually, when I'm talking about this is, in other words, what task should you be spending your time on? That's very important. Peter actually, suggests asking yourself the following basic questions in general. What does the situation require? The current situation require? How can I make the greatest contribution as such? How can one be able to make a sort of a contribution to from himself towards the society as such? Contribution is actually not, contribution cannot be taken as building your own career. It is something very different. If someone thought that he is contributing to a society by building his own career, this is a very wrong perception. This is very, very different from that. So next, what results to be achieved, and the results that are to be achieved, whether they are the results should be meaningful, they should be clearly visible as such. Now I would like to talk about, historically, what was happening historically. Historically, there were people who were not thinking about that what they should be doing. But the scenario changes in the 1960s when the emergence of the new economy in the United States, with the emergence of the new economy, the scenario changes. People started to think that, okay, what should I need to contribute as such? What sort of contribution do I need to be making in a society? Peter beautifully explains it with an example of an hospital administrator. For example, there was a very big and a very prestigious hospital in the United States at that time, and there was a newly recruited hospital administrator. The hospital since it was a very big and a very prestigious hospital, the hospital was already, has its reputation for over 30 years of reputation. 30 years of good reputation was there in the hospital as such. So instead of, the thing is that particular individual wanted to make his contribution. So what sort of contribution that individual is making? He wanted to improve any one area of the hospital within a time span of 2 years as such. He had actually made it possible. What he wanted to do, he actually, revamped the emergency room in the hospital, and he makes sure that there are qualified nurses in the hospital now. And those nurses should be attending the patients and would be taking in time span of about 60 seconds. Is it really possible that in just 60 seconds one is attended there? The nurses are attending their patients in an emergency room as such. Do you think is it possible? Yes, he has actually made it possible. So how because of his contribution, this individual has actually made it possible for the hospital. So he always wanted to make a hospital a better place to live in, and this hospital later out emerged as the role model for all the other hospitals in this state as such. So this is very, very important. So the key lesson is that even with a little contribution, one can actually create a difference in a society. That's very important. So until and unless one is ready to make a contribution, he has to really think of himself. Okay, what should I be contributing? He should be really thinking on. That's very important. Now, Peter further suggests that there are certain goals that needs to be achievable. You need to plan. For example, in order to make a strategy or something, you need certain sort of planning. And this planning should not exceed, the plan should not be very, very long. For example, the very the fifth point of my slide also states that don't plan for more than 1.5 years or 18 months in total. The plan should not be too long. The plan should be such that the goals are achievable as such, and even the results that this plan is having, they should be actually measurable. That's very important. The results are visible as such. For example, in case of this hospital administrator, he had actually created a meaning. What sort of meaning he has? The results are actually meaningful. He would have the option to instead of revamping the entire emergency room of that hospital, he would definitely have another option. What sort of option does he have? He would have the option of painting the entire hospital as such. He would be painting the entire hospital. He would also be building on the infrastructure, but the results would not be that meaningful. That's very important. The main point is that. So now I'll be talking about the responsibility for relationships. That is also very important and a very interesting topic to deal with. So what sort of responsibility does an individual needs to have in order to make his contribution also? So for example, a certain employee is working in a certain organization. So an employee must have a certain form of responsibility towards his boss. This concept states that a person needs to understand the other person's strengths, the value proposition, his values as such. If you have not understanding for example, in an organization, if an employee is not understanding his boss, if an employee is not understanding his co-workers as such, he would not be able to build good relationships as such. There exists a responsibility on the shoulders of every employee in the organization to build certain sort of good relationships within an organization. That's one of the examples being given in the passage. Other than that, it is very important. I have already told that know your boss and co-workers very well. That's the third point of a slide. Also, we need to know other person's expectations with you. That is also very important. I would like to give a very good example over here that was also given in the article as such. It is the responsibility of a sales manager to inform the marketing vice president of a certain organization about it, what are his duties. And converse is also true. It is also the responsibility of the marketing vice president to inform the sales executive about that. Okay, what is my goal? What I would be expecting from this organization as such. Actually, what is happening today is that today's organizations are basically based on they are based on trust. Everybody is looking for potential candidates who are just able to manage themselves. Also, they're looking for trustworthy candidates. Also, that's very important. That is also one of the facts that I have just talked about. Now coming on to the second half of your life, that is also one of the very, very best and very interesting thing to just know about. The second half is it, if you are just able to manage and optimize the second half of your life, you can basically emerge as a very good leader, or you can basically be a role model for anybody to start with. Actually, what was happening is that, for a manual laborer, he will be very happy if he will be working till 45 years of his life. He will be very happy to spend the rest of his life doing nothing. Isn't it a fact? Isn't it like that? Okay, but for a knowledge worker also known as organizations men, the working class professionals I'm talking about, if they are spending the 45 years of life working for something, and the knowledge and the learnings, do you think that they're actually learning or contributing to the organization as such? Peter actually outlines there are actually three methods to do this. Either you could be start by switching from one organization to another organization as such, or you should be start to develop a parallel career. I would like to give a very good example. Yesterday, Sir only told in the class that he was a part of an NGO. Sir is actually teaching us in this class, and if he would be investing his time in a non-profit organization like NGO apart from his regular work, so Sir would be actually developing a parallel career. He would not be living this career. This is through this example we could understand that what do we mean by developing a parallel career. Then we have to understand either the very third point that Peter suggests is that you could either invest your time in a social entrepreneurship. That is, you need to invest your time in that activities in which you are interested in. That's very important. In the very last point of this slide also states that the CEO of life is a knowledge worker. Everybody wants to be a CEO. Everybody has a dream of becoming a CEO of a certain organization as such, but one needs to understand, okay, how can he be able to best utilize the second half of his life? That is very important. So now I'll be talking about the key learnings that I will be getting from this, that we have been getting from this. No, it is very important for a person to manage himself for one's personal growth. That's very important. If one, the best contribution can only be made. If I want to make a certain contribution in a society, it can only be made if I would be having, if I would be developing a deep self-knowledge as such. A person need to work on his strengths in order to gain excellence. I would like to highlight the very important fact that, Peter Drucker suggests that okay, everybody needs to focus on his weaknesses in order to improve himself. From the very beginning stage, from the very young stage, we were always taught, okay, child, you need to focus on your weakness if you want to improve in something. But what Drucker outlines is that we need to focus on our strengths and basically look for opportunities where our strengths lie. For example, I'm from a technical background. So being good at Java or being good at C, so I would be basically looking for opportunities in my area of interest. That's very important. That's a key learning. The next is that investing time in activities will be giving you the best return as such. And the very next point is that opportunities selected. What sort of opportunities the individual is selecting? It should actually match your skill set. That's also a very important point. Apart from that, I will now coming on to the implications of this article. Actually, true and lasting experience, the very first point, can only be achieved by combining your strengths and self-knowledge. It's obvious. If one wants to become a CEO of a certain company, he needs to have an ambition. He needs to drive smart. He needs to know what are my strengths, what are my values, what should I contribute, what sort of responsibility is on my shoulders as such. Also, responsibility comes with opportunity as such. Cultivation of a deep understanding of the self, that is the strengths and weaknesses, is very important. Learning and working with others, including the working environment. If the person is working in a very good sort of working environment, he always have a lot of opportunities. He learns from his seniors, superiors, co-workers as well. That's very important. So, concluding my presentation with the fact that, indeed, one should know the art of managing oneself. Managing oneself is very important from the perspective of when we are looking at today's organization. It is something, one needs to discover your strengths, one needs to discover one need to know your values, one needs to evaluate your performance or evaluate your performance as such. So these are the things that would actually make oneself to learn that how he or she can be able to manage himself or herself. Lastly, I would like to thank all my audience, including sir, for patiently listening us. And I will be delighted if anybody want to have any sort of clarification or anybody want to ask any sort of question. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Misam, and thank you, Tausif. So let us move on to the second presentation first, and then we will come back to the performance and the content of the articles.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Shazur Alam. Me and my partner Sadbek are going to present the article Success That Lasts. Well, this article is all about how to achieve success that stays with you for a long time, rather than achieving success that fades away almost as soon as it is achieved. So what is success? Well, the conventional meaning of success is an accomplishment of an aim or purpose in life. And success is subjective to everyone. It means different to different people. So if you allow others to define your idea of success, then you will be following someone else's definition your whole life. So pursuing success. Well, pursuing success is like shooting at a landscape of moving targets. Every time you hit one, 5 more pop up from another direction. So just when we have achieved one goal, we feel pressure to work harder to earn more money. For example, suppose you are an MBA graduate. Your target would be to get a good job. And once you have achieved it, would be to raise salary or have a job satisfaction. Needs of achieving a target just never ends. There is more work to be done, more money to make, a bigger house to buy. So we live in this constant pressure to achieve more, to be more, and do more. But is it what success really is? So the next question is, what is enduring success? Well, if you think about what constitutes a moment of lasting satisfaction in your life, then maybe it's your daily practice of a musical instrument, or you helping a needy person. So it could be surprisingly trivial in comparison to your major work commitments or your commitments at home. So Laura Nash and Howard Stevenson interviewed and surveyed hundreds of professional candidates to study the assumption behind the idea of success. Then they built a practical framework of success, a way that leads to professional and personal fulfillment instead of feeling of anxiety and stress. The characteristics. Well, they found out in the survey, people who lived stable life with lasting success had some common characteristics, which were high achievement, multiple goals, the ability to experience pleasure, the ability to create positive relationships, and a value on accomplishments that endure. So, components of enduring success. Well, in the research, they found 4 components that were necessary for people to feel a strong and enduring sense of success. These components are happiness, achievement, significance, and legacy. Well, happiness is a feeling of pleasure or contentment about your life. And achievement, it is something that you have accomplished, particularly by your great effort, courage, or special skills. And significance is it is a sense that you have made a positive impact on people that you care about. And legacy, it is a way to establish your values or accomplishments so as to help others to find future success. The complexity of success. Well, anyone who takes the 4 elements of success seriously soon realizes how difficult can it be to touch on all the 4 with regularity. As soon as you scale up your goals, the 4 part mix becomes more difficult to achieve. Well, people believe that success depends on putting all your energy into achieving one goal, be it a single-minded focus on your job or being the best soccer mom of your society. But success isn't a one-dimensional thing. Take away one goal, take away one component, and it no longer feels like a real success. So unless you hit on all the 4 categories with regularity, anyone will fail to satisfy. Any abundance of success in one category will fail you to satisfy. You will experience what they call win factor. I mean, your achievement and pleasure would fade away almost as soon as they occur. So once you have understood the 4 elements of success, your next target would be to find the most appropriate goal to achieve. And this is where you need to be careful, as people tend to get caught into mismatch. You may be expecting too many categories to be fulfilled without incorporating the right resources. So matching your expectations to the right category is a critical skill of achieving enduring success. So experiencing real satisfaction. Well, the research showed that the people who experienced real satisfaction, they all shared a versatile talent called switching and linking. They were able to focus intensely on one task until it gave them a particular sense of satisfaction. Then they put it down and jumped to the next category with a feeling of accomplishment and renewed energy. So the people in the research who were particularly skilled at shifting to the moving targets and going after only those that produce lasting rewards share 2 characteristics. First, they didn't attribute their success to one single event or one single realm of life. And second, they weren't setting maximum goals for themselves in each category. Rather, they set some at small scale and some at scale that demanded sustained efforts. So the baseline for these individuals wasn't the amount of activity or number of rewards in any one category, but securing the proportionate mix of all 4. Now my partner Asad Beg will take you further. Over to you, Asad.
Thank you, Shraddha, for the great insight. Let's move on to the kaleidoscope strategy. We compare an effective strategy to a kaleidoscope, a simple mechanical device with a lens, mirror, and a long chamber. Each chamber holds a piece of glass that constantly shifts as the tube is moved. A picture is formed, which changes accordingly by our own movement. Now let's metamorphically compare a successful life with a kaleidoscope. Successful life also has 4 chambers: happiness, achievement, significance, and legacy. In this metaphor, success is about choice, pattern, and a structure that holds all the separate activities together. Now let's create our own kaleidoscope. To create our own kaleidoscope, let's look at this picture. It has 4 intersecting circles, labeled as happiness, achievement, significance, and legacy. In each circle, self, family, work, and community are written. Let's write down examples of great satisfactions we have achieved in our lives. We don't have to come up with one item for every circle. We don't have to spend time overthinking. Just work with our first impulses. For example, let's take our graduation college degree. You may have felt that graduating from college was a major achievement, a benchmark in our career plans, and something that we will value for our whole life. We had to compete to get there and get the grade as well. You felt satisfaction when you were successful. So you would write college in your achievement table next to work. But it might also be that degree meant a lot for your parents too, and it did. And hence we can write college degree under achievement in front of family too. It is important to know that we are young individuals for whom success is yet to come, and it is totally okay, and we shouldn't be worried if we don't fill in all the given spaces. What happens when we ignore a component of success? Let us take a couple of examples for one-dimensional success. If a person achieves everything in life financially and has a lot of work achievement, yet never feels fulfilled, and we apply the kaleidoscope strategy to his life, we would find that his happiness, legacy, significance chambers are practically empty. The person is successful by financial measures, but yet depressed. Now we compare that life to that of a student. We now may take a student who has been doing above average in his classes. His parents are happy with him. He has joined a NGO which serves the community and has good friends who make him happy. Although all the chambers are not full for him, but he is still satisfied and not anxious and lives peacefully. It is commonly observed that success, people find enduring success anxiety provoking rather than satisfying. If we don't put a stopper in running behind success in one dimension, then it will lead to anxiety and toxicity in our life. No amount of abundance of success in one dimension can compensate for lack of success in other dimensions. That is why it is important to know when to stop your work in one component of success and switch your attention to another. When to stop. The high achievers were able to accomplish great things by recognizing when to stop. They had multiple goals that were critical to their idea of real success. By switching and linking, they limited their attention to one task, and when other needs to be pressed, they were able to make changes. That's where the concept of just enough becomes critical. If we pay attention to the four categories in the kaleidoscope of success and their relationship to one another, we can enrich the potential for any activity to satisfy us on numerous dimensions, whether at work, in our leisure time, or in some other aspect of our life. Without losing your energy for high aspirations, you set reachable goals. Convinced, just enough is the antidote to society's addiction to the infinite more. Just enough. People conventionally interpret enough as they don't capture its potential. People tend to use terms such as that's it, I have had enough as a code of mediocrity and passivity. It means something else by just enough. Just enough refers to the sufficient amount of quantity to fulfill needs or satisfy demands. Now let's move on to the conclusion. When I first went through this article, the first thing I could correlate it to a movie dialogue which quotes, "Don't run behind success, run behind excellence. Success will eventually come with it." The article teaches us about the success that lasts, success which will be more peaceful and less stressful. So achieving lasting success requires hitting all the four components of success regularly rather than putting all your attention into achieving a single target. Thank you. Any questions are welcome.
Thank you, Shazad, and thank you, Asad. Any questions regarding the presenters? All right, so we have a little bit of less time, so let us come quickly to the performances and let us try to analyze some of them. So let us start with the first presenter, Misam. Would you like to do some self-introspection and have some insights about your own performance?
Yes, sir. Although I have tried to cover almost all the content, but what I feel is that I have exceeded the time limit as such. So this is something that actually I need to analyze from next time.
Okay. All right. So anyone who would like to just give any suggestion to Misam or any kind of feedback to him? Okay. So what about Tausif?
I feel the same that my content was not much crisp, so I took more time in order to just take the attention of the audience. And the second thing, what I feel that in a hurry, in a quick, I think while going through the article, in somewhat I was not able to pronounce some of the words correctly, and that is more about, I think more and more practice will, I think, mitigate all these things.
Yes. So overall, I find it was a good presentation, and the one very thing which I really admire about some of the students is the effort they put in. So even if the results are not on the expected line, not up to the mark, we would say, but yes, they are in the direction where that is what I think is more important. That if you are sincerely putting in the effort, then not this time maybe, but next time or the next time, results and the performance will be at a level where you will be proud of that performance. So on that account, I would say that both of you did a good job. The effort was evident. However, yes, there were some learnings which we can note down from this performance. Like you yourself have pointed out that in case of Tausif that you had some issues with the pronunciation and grammar. So it's good that you have noted down, and I think if you sincerely start working on that at this level, this time is not at your at your advantage because you are in graduation. That I would say that, but it's never too late. It's never too late. So pick up these things as quickly as possible and try to overcome these things. If you feel in your performance these things can be at any level can put you down, so please take note of this and work on it seriously. What I really liked, especially about Meeson, the confidence and the exuberance which he displayed. He started very confidently, and also Tausif also establishing the relevance of the article, that why it is relevant to listen to what Peter Drucker has to say. So I really liked it. Yes, time management overall is an issue which I think you need to work on. And there were in some of the slides, I could note that there was too much text, and I think that you have prepared a script for you to for your presentation. Is it so?
Yes, sir. Script was prepared. Right.
Yeah. So that's what I would say, that yes, at this level, okay, if you are new to presentations, you are starting, okay, script is fine, but try to shift from script to the cue cards. Okay, do not try to pretend to be anyone. Try to be yourself and be as natural as possible, I would say, and build on your natural strengths. Okay, and like that 80-20 rule, apply it to yourself. Okay, focus on your strengths and 20%, because if you start focusing on your strengths 80% of the time, what will happen, that even if the 20% of the things which are not right now up to the mark, you will be able to cover up those things. Okay, but it doesn't mean that you should not work on those 20%. Simultaneously start working on the 20%, but that 80% will overpower the 20%. That's what Peter Drucker has tried to convey in this article also, that build on your strength. That is very good. One suggestion which I have for you is that you can also record, if you are having issues with time management. Today with technology, what you can do, you can record your presentations and just have a relook at it, and you can also pick up things like grammatical errors or pronunciation things, and or any other where you feel that you need improvement. So that will be a very good tool for you. So to improve performance also. So maybe visualize your performance and record. Sometimes it can help. Okay. Overall, it was a good effort. I have very well done. Now let us come to Shazar and Asad. Let us hear from Shazar. What do you think, Shazar?
So I think I was being a monotonous, so it must have become boring at some point. It would have been better if I engaged a bit more. Yes. And I think that I was speaking a bit fast. It would have been better if I spoke a bit slow.
Good.
Okay. These are the two things which I need to get better on.
Very good. What about Asad?
Sir, I felt complex after listening to the first that our content was not that rich. Also, sir, that when the slides transition, I tend to take a break. Like I have to read what's on the next slide and then get an idea what to speak. But I think I will improve on it when I practice more. Also, sir, pronunciation of similar sounding words like success. When I like speak it too many times, there's like a collection of saliva, and I tend to oversay it sometimes.
So, any suggestion for Shazar and Asad? Okay, so let me. Both of you did a very good job, I would say. However, like you pointed out, Shazar, you have rightly pointed out about yourself that your pace was, I think, on a bit higher side. If you could slow down a bit, not very much. Like you don't have to slow down too much, but you can just slow down a bit. And because it is your natural style, so you speak fast. That which we can make out. But if you can just slow down a bit and also modulate your voice. Modulate your voice. Maybe one is this, okay? You are speaking in this modulation, and the other is this. So there are some ideas which require a higher pitch, maybe. Okay, and some may be normal pitch. So some, if you want to stress out something, then you can use your pitch for that matter. So pitch is a very important aspect of public speaking. Okay. So when you are in a presentation mode, try to use this modulation to your advantage, and you can develop this by practice. Use up pauses also to great effect. You can use pauses also. Say you want people to reflect on certain things. So maybe pause a bit and just give them the time to reflect. Similarly, both of you have good command over language, so you can use all of these things to your advantage. For Asad, again, I would say that yes, you were also like a straight line was there, little bit of pauses in between. Now, once you are saying that you have that issue that once you are transitioning between the slides, so there are ways in which you can overcome this thing. Okay, one is if you are using a laptop. Okay, use another device, maybe a mobile phone for your looking at your presentation. Okay, so what happens that usually when you are using a laptop and you are sharing your screen, the presenter mode is not working. The presenter mode does not work. You know what a presenter mode is in PowerPoint? There is a presenter's view. Okay, when you present, there is an option of presenter view. In presenter view, what happens that one slide is basically presented, and in front of you, there is on half of more than 3/4 of the screen, the slide is there, and you can see the next slide which is about to come. Okay, and you can also add your notes there if you want to add. So that's a tool which is used, but in online presentations, once you are giving it like on Zoom and all, it does not work mostly. Okay. So what you can do in online presentation, in physical, in offline presentations and face-to-face presentations, you can use that presenter view to overcome this. In online, you can use another device, or maybe what you can do, you can use cue cards and write on that slide number 1, slide number 2, main idea. Okay. So now when you are transitioning, and you can just change the slides once you are speaking, change the cue cards and you are speaking. So, and you know that this is the next slide which is about to come. So use colors and all these things to differentiate also, so that your eye can catch what is the central idea and you're not distracted too much. But again, use all of these things only once you practice these things. Okay. You practice it and then you use in the final performance. That's what I would suggest. Okay. So overall, it was a very good performance by all of you. I would congratulate, and the effort. I am more than the performance. Like performance is obviously important, but I would always be a big fan. I would always respect the individuals who put an effort, and that's what which we witnessed today. All of you have tried to do a good job, and to a large extent, you have succeeded in that. So, but please build on this performance. I think there is the best on you has to come. Okay, so there is we will see in the coming incoming performances. So I would request to keep on working, and I hope that we will witness that.
Sir, I have a general question for you.
Okay, yes, please. Yes.
Sir, actually, Tausif and Nisam did a wonderful job. They covered almost every point of their presentation. And sir, the same thing happened with me also, that I also exceeded the target. And I'm sure that most of us have done the same. So sir, my question is that these articles have so much content that it's really hard for a person to cover all the points within the 15 minutes time. So what would you say that how much content we should cover in the presentation that so we can cope up with the time limit of 15 minutes?
Yeah, try to understand why these articles have been given to you first. Okay, so actually this the question you are having is a question every year we face this question, and it's a deliberate thing which we have done. Okay, why we have given you, we could have given you a simple topic and you could have searched around that topic and you could have presented that topic. That would have also served one of the purpose of the objective of this course, which is basically presentation skills. This whole exercise is not just about presentation skills, first thing. Okay, that is why these articles have been given to you, and that is why content rich articles have been given to you. Why? Because you are living in an age which is basically full of information. It's called information overload is there. Okay, you just click Google, you just open Google and you type any search term and just search. What happens? There are millions of articles on that on that topic. That's what happens, and we are overwhelmed with information. In this process, in this scenario, what should you do? The ability to basically take out what is necessary, okay, what is important, and making this judgment is very critical. So that is what you have to learn. Once you are reading these articles, there are a lot of ideas and there are a lot of things to cover in these articles. But as an informed individual, as a person who is doing an MBA, your job, because you will always feel this plenty, you will always have this this thing where you have plenty of things to, and even in your career, you will have we have choice overload today. So many things to do, so many things to cover. What do I do? You have to learn to prioritize things, and that is what these articles are also teaching you. You have all the information. That is why I'm saying that you have to internalize the idea. Read it a couple of times to get the central idea, and then once you have jotted down all the ideas, and if it's looking too much, then make a judgment. Which are the ideas which are at the very center of all of these things? Okay, what is the central message, and what are the key ideas? Let me just focus on 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my priority number 1. If I get time, I will devote some more time on 5, 6, 7. That's basically the priorities which are lower priorities. Okay, that's what you have to learn. That is why these articles are there. So then that's the strategy you should apply. Reread the articles a couple of times, note down the main points, then apply this framework P1, P2, P3, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. Okay, and the ideas which are not that much important, so keep that in. If you have time, you can explain it to them, but prepare those central ideas pay more attention to those ones, and that is what the key message will be. Okay. There is no point, say for example, you are giving content, you are trying to cover everything and nobody is remembering everything. Okay. That's what you can do. So we will come to the content-rich articles. I think we have already crossed the time, but I will, whenever time comes, I will come back to these two articles because these are so much important. I think in the whole list of these articles, I think these are one of the two most important articles. Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker and this Success That Lasts, the Kaleidoscope strategy. Wonderful, wonderful ideas, very, very powerful ones. And these are used by consultants all across the world for training top-level executives, CEOs. This content is used for them. This Kaleidoscope strategy is used for training C-level executives. Okay. So we will come back to these content of this article in the next or whenever we get time. Okay. So best of luck. I would request all of you to read these articles for the presenters who have to present now. So please take the learnings from today into account, and I hope that all of you will read these articles. All right. So let us call it a day. Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.